Hey everybody, welcome to the videos from my core plays for week 16 of the NFL season over on Draftkings. And if you find this video helpful in any way possible, please leave a like. And if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out and I really do appreciate it. And while you're at it, you might as well hit the notification bell as well so you don't miss out whenever I post new content. And YouTube tells me around 50% of the people who watch these videos have not yet subscribed. So if you're a frequent visitor to the channel or if you're just new and you like what you see, consider that subscribe button because it really helps the channel grow. That's obviously going to help me out as well. And if you don't follow me over on social media, the handle's in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. And if you want to support the channel over on Patreon, link is down below for that. But I think that's it for the plugs. So without further ado, let's dive into today's video. And leading us off with core play number one, it's David Montgomery at $7,700. He's been a frequent visitor to the core play section, it feels like, the past month, but the guy has been absolutely balling out. He's the RB1 over the past 4 games, and he gets another great matchup here versus the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he just had a really nice lucky stretch of matchups these past weeks. He's faced Minnesota, Houston, Detroit, and Green Bay. Those are 4 of the best run defenses you could face, and now he's facing the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have one of the worst defenses in football. So yeah, I think it's going to be another strong game from David Montgomery. He's putting up points each and every single week. In those games, he scored 32, 27, 27, and 28 points. And while it's hard to expect that amount of points each and every single week, I would not be surprised if it happens again here for David Montgomery. And the Bears have been putting up a lot of points this past month as well. Scoring over 30 points, 30 real-life points the past 3 weeks. And they had 25 points versus Green Bay. So this offense is clicking right now, and they're in a great spot versus the Jaguars. They rank 24th DVA versus the run, and they're allowing nearly 30 Draftkings points per game, which is 3rd most in the league, well over 100 rushing yards, and about a rushing touchdown per game as well. And the great thing about David Montgomery is that he's pretty much the only running back that's going to get touches in this backfield ever since Tariq Cohen went down. He's going to be involved in the passing game as well. He had over 30 carries last week. I believe he had 2 targets, but we should be looking anywhere from, I'd say, 20, 25 touches, if not with the upside of more for David Montgomery here in a fantastic matchup versus the Jaguars. This also sets up really well in Vegas as they are 7-point favorites. They're on the road, but they have a 27-point implied team total. And like I mentioned earlier, the matchup versus the Jaguars is great. So he's a nice volume back, and he's been performing absolutely exceptional the past month now, and I expect that to continue here in a really good matchup versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Alright, moving on to my second core play. It's a tight end here, and it's Travis Kelce at $8,500. Absolutely massive price tag. I know it doesn't feel great paying nearly $9,000 for a tight end, but Travis Kelce is not like any other tight end. He is pretty much a wide receiver out there, and his numbers are absolutely insane. After this week, I assume he's going to retain the lead as the league leader in receiving yards, which is absolutely insane. So I'm expecting a pretty big game here from Travis Kelce. Now, I know you usually have to go cheap at tight end, but with the way this slate works out, we have an abundance of really cheap wide receivers that are totally viable this week in all formats. So spending or just building around Travis Kelce and spending up for him, I don't think is that bad of a strategy this week. And if you want to use one of the other cheap tight ends, I don't hate going 2 tight end lineups this week. Maybe plugging in a guy like Austin Hooper in your flex spot and using Travis Kelce obviously in your tight end spot. But getting into Travis Kelce here, should be a pretty big game for the Kansas City Chiefs passing attack, as the Atlanta Falcons have been a pass funnel defense this season. They've been very stingy versus running backs in the run game overall. But versus the air, they have been absolutely dreadful. They're awful versus quarterbacks, wide receivers, and tight ends. No better trio to have than Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Tyreek Hill at those positions. So it's an absolute smash spot here. They have the highest implied team total in the slate at over 32 points. They're 11-point favorites at home here. You have an over-under of 53.5, which is the highest on the entire slate. Actually, the only game that features over a 50-point over-under. So if the Atlanta Falcons can keep this game somewhat close, it should be an absolute smash spot here versus the Kansas City Chiefs. And looking at the numbers for Travis Kelce this season, close to 100 receiving yards per game, 7 catches, just about 10 targets, about a receiving touchdown per game, a 25% target share, and a 25% market share of the team's air yards. And I don't really care about matchups when it comes to Travis Kelce. Even if the Falcons were like allowing the fewest points for him in the tight end position, I would still like him here, but it's also just fortunate whenever you get a nice matchup because it's just an added bonus. But they're getting the 5th most points for him in the tight end position. They're 20th DVA versus the pass, close to 60 receiving yards, and over half a receiving touchdown per game. So Kelce, I think we're probably looking at 100 plus yards here, close to 10 catches, and I would not be surprised if he gets to the end zone once or twice. He always has upside of getting 3 touchdowns as well. Also, Tyreek Hill was kind of banged up heading into the week, so if he's limited in any fashion or happens to get re-injured in that game, it's just an absolute smash spot here for Travis Kelce. And I know he's super expensive, the most expensive he's been all season long, but it's just such a good spot, and with the way this slate works out, I think he's a pretty nice fit into our lineups this week. All right, moving into our third core play, so the second running back we're going to talk about. It's Melvin Gordon here below $6,000, and this is mainly just because Philip Lindsay got placed on IR, so now Melvin Gordon is just going to be the clear-cut lead back because they pretty much kind of split snaps. Melvin Gordon usually has a slight lean on dominating those snaps, but still Philip Lindsay is always there, and it just kind of gets annoying for this backfield. But with him out of the equation, it's going to be the Melvin Gordon show here, and we also know that Royce Freeman is questionable for this game, and if he happens not to suit up, it's really just going to be Melvin Gordon, whoever else they decide to give carries. So I'm liking him here a lot here below $6,000 just because of the volume he's going to get. This game also has a sneaky 49-point over-under, which I know is not great, but it's actually one of the higher over-unders on the slate, so we could see a decently high-scoring game here. And it's a great matchup versus the Chargers. And if you guys love a good narrative, it's his old team, and there's a good revenge narrative there. And if you guys like Narrative Street, I mean, it's about as good as it gets facing his old team. And the Chargers have not been a good defense this season, especially versus the run. Looking at their numbers this season, they're 31st DVS versus the run, which means they're second worst, and they're 17th versus running backs, allowing over 24 Draftkings points per game, close to 100 rushing yards, and close to 6 catches per game as well. We know Melvin Gordon should get around 5 targets in this one, if not more, since Philip Lindsay's out, and he's going to be the main running back, so I could definitely see him getting quite a bit of dump-offs here. So I'm liking Melvin Gordon a lot at this price point. There's a couple of other pivots you could look at, like Kareem Hunt, with all the Browns players being out. He should get added targets. I believe he's just below $6,000 at $5,900, but I'm really liking Melvin Gordon here. I think he's a nice, safe volume play. Plus, I like the added narrative as well going against his old team. And if you're looking at the numbers this season when both him and Philip Lindsay are playing, so Philip Lindsay's numbers this season, getting around 10 carries per game, just slightly over that, about 50 rushing yards, and about a target per game. So when you take that out of the equation, Melvin Gordon's sitting at just over 13 carries, about 62 rushing yards, and a handful of targets as well. So I think we should see around 20 touches, if not more, if we're lucky, if game script happens to go his way. And I believe they're 3-point dogs here, so I don't think they're going to be just winning the game or just pounding down their throat, but it should be close enough where he gets a decent amount of carries on the ground, and he should see quite a few targets as well, which is going to boost his floor on a PPR site like Draftkings. All right, moving on to core play number 4 here, we have T. Higgins at $4,700 of the Cincinnati Bengals, and similar to the last guy we talked about, I like him quite a bit here just because there's a guy missing that's going to boost his role in the offense. So like in the last guy, Melvin Gordon, Philip Lindsay's going to be out, which is going to boost his role. And as for T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd's going to miss this game, so that's going to boost T. Higgins in his role in this game. So I'm liking him quite a bit here, one of the best matchups you can ask for versus the Houston Texans, who have just an absolute abysmal defense this season, whether it's versus the run or versus the pass. But like I said, Tyler Boyd's going to be out for this game. That's going to be huge for T. Higgins because on the season, Tyler Boyd has been the leading receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals, about 7.5 targets per game, close to 6 catches, 60 receiving yards, about a 25% target share, and around a 20% market share of the team's air yards. So when you wipe that out, that's obviously going to be a big boost for T. Higgins. It's not like he's not been involved in the offense this season. He's been a constant producer, although without Joe Burrow, the numbers have certainly dropped off, which is understandable because you have Brandon Allen and Ryan Finley throwing the football. And speaking of those guys, we're not sure who's going to be the starting quarterback. I'm assuming it's going to be Brandon Allen. He did practice this week, and it sounds like he should be good to go. But Zach Taylor did not say who's going to be the starting quarterback. So if it happens to be Ryan Finley, I would downgrade T. Higgins a bit, because I'm kind of wanting Brandon Allen to be the starting quarterback because I feel like it's a bit of a boost for the passing game, which would include T. Higgins here. But on the season, T. Higgins, he's already around a 20% target share, and a little bit over a 25% market share of the team's area, so he's got a little bit of down the field threat as well. And it's a great matchup versus the Texans. They're one of the worst defenses in football, like I said, whether it's on the ground or through the air. They're 26th versus the pass, and they're 23rd versus wide receivers, allowing nearly 1.5 receiving touchdowns per game just to the position, and close to 170 receiving yards per game as well. They're also 7.5-point dogs here, so it should be a pass-heavy game script. And both teams actually played at a decent fast pace, so I would not be surprised if we could see a lot of opportunities here for T. Higgins and company. And if you can't get up to $4,700 T. Higgins, I also think AJ Green's playable as well. I believe he's only $3,500. So if you have to drop down a little bit, I think AJ Green is playable. I just don't think he's as safe as a play as T. Higgins, but that's kind of baked into the price as well. All right, my fifth core play, or fifth and sixth, whatever you want to call it. I guess I am cheating a bit listening to guys here, but it's just cheap Browns pass catching options because we got the news a little bit ago that their entire wide receiver core got absolutely wiped out. There's no Jarvis Landry, no Donovan Peoples-Jones, no Rashard Higgins, and no Kadarius Hodge. and there's a couple of other guys on IR. So yeah, it is an absolute mess here, and they're going to have to throw the ball to someone. This is a fantastic matchup versus the Jets, so this really opened up quite a bit of value. So the guys I like the most as of right now, it's Marvin Hall at $3,000. They got him from the Detroit Lions a couple of weeks ago, or a few weeks ago, whenever that happened. Then we have Austin Hooper at $3,500. These guys should see the biggest bumps, in my opinion, in the passing attack here, and really Marvin Hall is going to have no choice but to kind of be the wide receiver one in this offense. And I know we don't have any sample size to use with him on the Browns, but we know he's a speedy wide receiver, and this is definitely a matchup we can take advantage of against the New York Jets. And he's min price, so I'm not really sure what more you would want from him. But looking at the Jets' numbers this season versus the pass, they are dead last, 32nd DVA versus the pass. They're also 27th versus wide receivers, meaning they're allowing the 6th most points per game of the position, close to 200 receiving yards per game, and over a receiving touchdown. Also, Baker Mayfield has been playing excellent football the past month or so now. I think he's like quarterback 3 in fantasy the past month, so he's been on his game. He's going to throw the ball to someone. I know this is a team that likes to run the football, and I assume they're going to have a run-heavy approach versus the New York Jets here, but they have been tougher versus the run than they have versus the pass, and it's not like they're not going to throw the football all game. So Marvin Hall, he should get a handful of targets here, maybe 10 if we get lucky. I'm not totally sure how this offense is going to look, but I assume he's going to be the wide receiver one here, and he's bare minimum $3,000 on a good matchup. We saw him have at least some production on the Detroit Lions, so we know he's capable of having a decent game here, so I like him quite a bit because you're taking out all those players in that offense. And if you just want to look at their numbers this season, this is what's coming out of the offense. So Jarvis Landry, a 25% target share. Rashard Higgins, a 15% target share. Peoples-Jones, 5%, but that has come up with Odell Beckham Jr. being out because some of these numbers are included with Odell. Odell, 21% target share, and Kadero Hodge, about an 8% target share. So taking that out of the equation, massive boost for these guys. We're also going to see Jamarcus Bradley get on the field as well. He's another wide receiver you could look at, but Marvin Hall, he's the guy I'm liking the most as of right now. Then Austin Hooper, he should see quite a big boost as well. He's already the tight end one in this offense, but with all those guys being out, I assume he's going to have more of a pass-catching role here. And his numbers on the season are around a 17% target share, a 33% weight opportunity share, and 11% market share of the team's air yards, and roughly about a handful of targets per game. But specifically this matchup as a tight end versus the New York Jets, they have been the worst team in the league versus tight ends. Dead last, allowing 18 points per game, over 66 receiving yards, and close to a receiving touchdown per game. There's other tight ends that can be useful in this offense, like David Njoku and Harrison Bryant, but Austin Hooper is going to be the main tight end here. And I would not be surprised if he can get you about 5 catches, I'd say like 50, 60 yards, and find the end zone in this one with the lack of pass catching options that the Browns are going to have in this one. They added one of the higher implied team totals on the slate. Before the news dropped, they had a team total of 29. Now that I'm obviously assuming is about to drop because I'm recording this not too long after it happened. I'm assuming that's going to drop, but it's still a matchup versus the Jets, and the ball's going to go somewhere. Marvin Hall and Austin Hooper, I think, are going to be the main benefactors. And also, Kareem Hunt, I think he gets a nice boost as well. I didn't list him here because he's not really that cheap. He's still below $6,000, but I do think he's a decent option because he should have at least a pretty prominent role in the pass game. He's already the main pass-catching running back, but with all those guys out, we saw versus the Ravens, they were lining him up out wide, and he was catching passes, and he actually caught a fade near the end zone, and he had a receiving touchdown as well. So I would not be surprised if we see Kareem Hunt go out wide for some snaps as well, but really liking these cheap guys, and they really open up our lineup to fitting guys like Travis Kelce, David Montgomery, Patrick Mahomes, if you want to spend a big quarterback this week. So just gives you some added flexibility in their great spots as well. But that's going to be it for this video, guys. So I hope it was helpful, and if it was, make sure you leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. It really helps me out, and I really do appreciate it. And if you want to follow me over on Twitter, ChrisPennell16, CPenn16 over on IG. If you want to support the channel over on Patreon, you can do that. Link is in the description below if you want access to all my sheets, cheat sheet, notes, projections, Discord chat, all that fun stuff. I also do NBA content on there every single day. Just don't post videos for YouTube. We also have NASCAR coming up, so I'm very excited about that. And then we have MLB in the spring. I'm getting ahead of myself. That's a far ways away. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I'm going to stop rambling, and I'll see you guys in the next video.